Hi students, welcome to Easy Elimu Learning Simplified. My name is Mbire, and in this session we are going to learn about writing, specifically writing speeches. You may be invited somewhere to speak as a guest, as a family member. Now, before you go to speak, before making the actual speech, you need to prepare for it. And you can even decide to write your speech so that when you go to give your speech, you just read. So how do you prepare for that? How do you plan for that? How do you know what to say, what not to say, what is relevant to say, what is not relevant to say? So that is what we are going to learn in this session. So we can define a speech as simply a spoken essay. It is an essay, but now spoken because you're reading it to your audience. And so that means that when you're preparing for a speech, when you're writing a speech, the rules that you should observe are the same rules that are observed when writing an essay. Now, in life, there are many scenarios where you may be required to give a speech. It could be you're the head prefect of your school, the head boy or the head girl. You need to give a speech on closing day or on prize giving day. Maybe you're the chair of a certain club in your school and your club has a meeting, or your club is leading the assembly and you need to address the assembly, and you may need to give a speech. So there are different scenarios that you need to give a speech. Maybe you need to give a speech on behalf of somebody. How do you prepare for that? And so just like an essay, your speech should have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So let us have a look and see what is entailed in these three different parts. So what is entailed in the introduction? Remember, as you're writing this speech, you are writing because you're going to present it to people orally. So the introduction is the part that invites your listeners to your speech to now start listening to you. It is the part that calls the listeners to attention. So in that introduction, in that introductory paragraph, you may introduce yourself. And you start by introducing yourself and your title. Acknowledge whoever asked you to give the speech. And then state what your speech is about. So if you're the head boy in your school and the principal has asked you to give a speech on behalf of the students during prize giving day, you introduce yourself, you say you're the head boy, and then acknowledge and thank the principal for giving you the chance to give the speech, and then say what the speech is about. So you can tailor make your speech to the theme of the prize giving day for that year, for example. And then now give your speech. So let people know who you are before you start your speech. After the introduction, we now go to the body. This carries the bulk of the speech because it is the main part of your speech. It contains all the important points that you're going to make, so it should be as detailed as possible. Try not to leave any detail behind. This is where all the details are. Everything you need to say is said at this stage or at this point. After you have given your speech, it is now time to conclude. It is time to wind down. So this is the closing part of your speech. The last paragraph or the last two paragraphs of your speech is what we call the conclusion. So you can finish by summarizing whatever it is that you've talked about. Also remember to thank your audience for listening to you, and then you sign off. So what are some things that you can consider when writing a speech, when preparing for a speech? Number one is make the speech as brief as possible and to the point. So before you write it, you can maybe write down a list of the points that you want to make. Just write them down and then go through them. And if there are points that you feel may not be very relevant or useful, do away with them and only remain with the important points and build up on the important points. And make sure your speech is as brief as it can possibly be. After that, make your introduction clear and simple and outline the points you will make in the speech. So remember, I said in the introduction, you start by first introducing yourself, acknowledging the person or people that asked you to give the speech, and then you now go to what your speech will be about and give a few pointers of what it is you'll talk about. So what should your audience expect? After, you can also use memory devices. This is repetition. Repetition is an important tool when it comes to speeches because it is used for emphasis. If there's a point you want to emphasize, use repetition. That will keep reminding your audience of the main points. And lastly, address the audience correctly. So if your audience is made up of grown-ups, men and women, don't call them boys and girls. Address them properly and correctly. So as you're preparing for your speech, also remember to use concrete words. Remember to use simple language, simple words that are not too complicated. So avoid the complicated words as much as possible. Use simple words that everybody in your audience can easily understand. And ensure that the points that you're making or the points that you're giving, they are clear, and they also develop your paragraphs clearly. Remember when we learned about paragraphs and the parts of a paragraph, we said that a paragraph has the topic sentence, the supporting sentences, and the clincher sentence. So develop your paragraphs well so that the sentences in each paragraph are well connected, and also the paragraphs themselves are well connected so that you're not confused and mixing points up or repeating something that you already said or saying something that is not relevant to whatever it is that you're talking about. And lastly, relate your writing personally to yourself and to your audience. So you can give examples of yourself, examples of experiences that you've had, or ask the questions, ask the audience, is this something you can relate to? Have you ever gone through 1, 2, 3? How did you get yourself out of it? And that helps with engaging your audience so that you're not talking to yourself. You know that they're there and they are listening to you. So that's it for speeches. I hope you have understood, and that if you are called upon to give a speech somewhere, you know how to prepare yourself, you know how to plan for your speech. You can start by drafting a few points, and then from that, sifting through and seeing the main points that you're going to write. And then now start writing your speech. Remember, a speech should follow the format of an essay. That means it should have an introduction, it should have a body, and it should have a conclusion. And then remember to use a simple language to avoid complicated language. You can use humor here and there. You can pose rhetorical questions to your audience that keeps them engaged. So for further practice, you can have a look at this quiz and attempt to do it. You have been invited by the drama club of your neighboring school to speak on a topic of your choice during a party to celebrate their victory in the national drama festivals. Write the speech you will deliver. So remember, this is a drama club of another school, and they are here to celebrate that they won in the drama festivals. So if you have an idea of what item won, what item they presented that won, you can write a speech based on that. You can also write a speech based on victory and celebrations. So feel free to play around with your imagination. Thank you for tuning in and see you in the next session.